I still remember the sound of her voice that night, low, even, but with that small tremor that slipped through when she said my name. Eli, can you stop by my office before you head out? It was already dark outside. The hallways were nearly empty, fluorescent lights humming like they were trying to stay awake. I told myself it was nothing, she probably just wanted to go over the essay I'd turned in late. But the truth is, I'd have gone no matter what she asked. Her door was half open. Warm light spilled out, the kind that makes everything look softer than it should. She was sitting at her desk, one leg crossed over the other, hair loose around her shoulders. The scent of her perfume lingered in the air, faintly floral, with something heavier beneath it, like old paper and memory. You came, she said, glancing up. Her voice was calm, but her fingers fidgeted with a pen that had no cap. You asked, I said, and immediately regretted how fast it came out. A small smile pulled at the corner of her mouth, not amused, not exactly kind, just knowing. Close the door, would you? The latch clicked, and suddenly the silence between us felt louder than the hum of the lights. She gestured toward the chair across from her, the same one I'd sat in a dozen times, but it felt different now, like the air had thickened, like sitting down would mean something I couldn't undo. You're late with your paper again, she said. I know. Twice in a row. Yeah. She set the pen down. You're a good writer. I don't understand why you keep holding back. I shrugged, eyes drifting to the window. The glass reflected us, her upright and composed, me slouched and uncertain, two versions of people pretending this was still just about coursework. Maybe I'm just distracted, I said. She tilted her head, studying me longer than necessary. By what? The question hung there. I could have said something simple, work, stress, anything. But I didn't. I just looked at her, and maybe that was answer enough, because she exhaled softly, as if the air had turned too heavy to keep in. Her hands folded together on the desk. Eli, she said quietly, you're young. You don't understand how easily small choices can start to. She stopped, looked away. Her gaze dropped to the pen again, fingers tightening around it. The pause stretched. Start to what? I asked. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Only the rustle of paper between us, the faint tick of the wall clock. She looked tired for a moment, not in the way people are after work, but in that way someone looks when they've been holding something back for too long. Then she stood, walked around the desk, and leaned against it beside me, close enough that I could see the faint shimmer of her lipstick, the pulse at her throat. You need to take your work seriously, she said. Her tone was firm, but her voice faltered halfway through the sentence. I said, even though it came out almost a whisper. She looked at me, really looked. Her eyes weren't sharp anymore, they were searching, conflicted. Her hand brushed the edge of the desk, then stilled. Don't make me regret calling you in, she murmured. I don't know why, but I smiled, small, nervous. Too late. Something flickered in her eyes then, surprise, maybe, or fear of what she saw reflected there. Before either of us could move, the hallway light outside flickered, and footsteps echoed closer. She straightened instantly. The space between us vanished like a secret being hidden. Go, she said softly. And as I reached for the doorknob, I heard her exhale, a quiet, shaking sound that didn't belong to the woman I thought I knew. The next morning, she didn't look at me when she walked into class. Her heels clicked softly on the tile, her expression perfectly composed, the kind of calm that only comes from deliberate effort. I tried not to stare. Tried to keep my focus on my notebook, the pen twirling uselessly between my fingers. But the scent of her perfume, faint, familiar, clung to the air, and my thoughts kept circling back to her office, to that moment before the footsteps, when she'd been close enough that I could feel the warmth of her arm near mine. Mr. Shaw, she said, her tone crisp. Would you like to explain why your thesis paragraph doesn't exist? The class laughed quietly. I managed a weak smile. It's under construction. She raised an eyebrow. Let's hope the foundation's stronger than the deadline. Her eyes flicked to mine for half a second, just long enough to undo me. Then she moved on, calling on someone else. But the damage was done. My pulse wouldn't settle. Every word she spoke after that came to me blurred, like her voice was the only sound that mattered. After class, I stayed behind, pretending to pack slowly. I told myself I wasn't waiting for her. She was erasing the board, her sleeves pushed up, chalk dust on her fingers. Her hair was pinned back today, but one strand kept falling forward. She brushed it away with the back of her hand, annoyed, graceful. When she noticed me still there, she sighed softly. Eli, if this is about last night, it's not, I lied. Good. Silence. The kind that thickens until someone has to cut it. She leaned against the desk again, same place as before. You're not in trouble, she said. You just make things complicated. I frowned. I don't mean to. I know. Her voice softened. That's what makes it worse. I wanted to ask what she meant, but she was looking past me now, out the window, where sunlight hit the empty quad. There was a stillness in her face I hadn't seen before. Something tired. You ever regret staying too guarded? I asked quietly. Her hand froze mid-motion. She didn't answer right away. Guardedness keeps people from making mistakes, she said. It's not the worst thing to hold on to. But it keeps you alone, I said. That made her turn. Her eyes met mine, sharp at first, then softening, almost like she was seeing someone she didn't expect to. I've been alone before, she said. You survive it. It wasn't defensive. It was honest. Too honest. I nodded, unsure what to say. My chest felt too full, like words were pressing against my ribs but couldn't get out. She looked at me for a long moment, then exhaled. You're too young to understand the luxury of distance. I smiled faintly. You're not that old. That earned a quiet laugh, the first I'd heard from her outside of class. Careful, Eli. Flattery sounds different coming from you. She said it like a warning, but her eyes stayed on me a beat too long. When she finally looked away, her fingers brushed mine as she reached for a stack of papers. A tiny, accidental touch, except it didn't feel accidental. My breath caught. She froze. Her fingers lingered, just a second too long, before she pulled back. She started, then stopped. Her voice had gone unsteady. Right, I said. I should, too. But neither of us moved. The late morning light was cutting through the blinds, striping across her face, her throat, her wrist. She looked human in that moment. Not the sharp, unreachable professor everyone else saw, but someone who'd once wanted something and convinced herself it was safer not to. Finally, she said, you remind me of someone. Someone you used to know? She nodded slowly. Someone who wanted too much. And didn't understand the cost. Her gaze dropped again, to the space between us. Then, almost without thinking, she reached up, brushed a bit of chalk dust off my shoulder. Her hand lingered there, soft, careful, hesitant. I didn't breathe. When she finally stepped back, her voice was almost a whisper. Don't make this harder than it already is. I wasn't the one who called me in, I said before I could stop myself. Something flickered in her eyes. Not anger, not exactly, more like a spark she didn't want to acknowledge. She smiled, barely. Get out of here, Eli. But when I turned toward the door, I felt it again, the air between us shifting, tightening, like something invisible had formed and neither of us knew how to undo it. And when I looked back one last time, she was still standing there, hand resting where she'd touched me, as if the trace of it hadn't faded yet. It started with a message. Can you come by before class? There's something we need to discuss. No signature, she didn't need one. The time and tone were enough. When I arrived, her door was closed this time. A first. I hesitated before knocking, catching the faint outline of her through the frosted glass. She opened it halfway, scanning the hallway behind me before stepping aside. Come in. The blinds were drawn, the light low. Her desk was clear except for 2 cups of coffee, one already cooling, one untouched. You didn't have to bring, I started. I didn't, she interrupted. It's from earlier. I just didn't throw it away. Something in her voice gave her away, that she'd been waiting. She sat, smoothing her skirt like it might help her find the right words. I've been thinking, she said slowly, about how we talk, how it looks. I leaned against the edge of a chair. It's just conversation, not to everyone. Her eyes flicked up to mine. You're my student, Eli. People notice things. They invent stories. I smiled faintly. Maybe they just notice because you keep calling me in after hours. Her eyes narrowed, but the corner of her mouth twitched like she wanted to smile and refused to. You think this is funny? No, I said. Then, quieter, but you're the one who keeps finding reasons to see me. She stood abruptly, the chair legs scraping the floor. This isn't, the words faltered. She pressed her palm to her temple, exhaled. You have no idea how fast things can spiral. I've seen careers burn down over less. I didn't know what to say. The space between us pulsed with something half danger, half desire. She moved to the window, pulling the blinds open just enough to let in a slice of light. I'm not supposed to, she trailed off, watching the quad below. Supposed to what? Her shoulders tensed. Forget it. The light cut across her cheek, catching the curve of her jaw. For a second, she didn't look like my professor, she looked like someone fighting herself. I don't want to make your life complicated, I said quietly. Her voice dropped. It already is. A knock shattered the air. Sharp, unexpected. She stiffened. I froze. Professor Raines, a voice called, another faculty member, close. Her hand shot out, brushing my arm. Stay quiet. I nodded. Her fingers stayed there longer than they should have, gripping just enough for me to feel the pulse in her wrist. After a few seconds, the voice faded down the hall. We both exhaled, the tension breaking into nervous laughter, too soft, too close. Her hand was still on me. I looked down at it. She followed my gaze, realizing, then pulled away like she'd touched fire. This is exactly what I meant, she said, her tone shaky. We can't. I took a step closer. You don't have to explain. She looked up, startled by the closeness. The air changed, slow, heavy, charged. I could see every detail now, the faint lines around her eyes, the shimmer of uncertainty there. Her breath brushed my chin when she spoke. This isn't fair to you, she whispered. Then tell me to go. She didn't. Her hand hovered near mine, inches away, trembling slightly. I could smell the coffee between us, bitter and sweet. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. Her lips parted, maybe to say my name, maybe to warn me again. I didn't move. Then, suddenly, the faint buzz of her phone lit up the desk. A name flashed across the screen, Mark, ex-husband. She stepped back like she'd been caught doing something she hadn't done yet. I should get that, she said, voice barely steady. Yeah, I murmured. Neither of us moved. The phone stopped buzzing, leaving only silence, that aching, unfinished kind that holds everything unsaid. When I finally turned to leave, she reached out, fingertips grazing my sleeve, a touch so light it barely happened. Eli, I looked back. Her eyes said don't, even as her hand said stay. We didn't kiss. We didn't have to. The distance between us was already smaller than it should have been. It rained the next day, one of those slow, soaking rains that blur the edges of everything. Campus was nearly empty when I walked past her office. The door was open a crack. I told myself I'd keep walking. I didn't. She was standing by the window, arms crossed, watching the storm. Her hair was damp from the walk-in, strands clinging to her neck. She turned when she heard me. You shouldn't be here, she said softly. I know. She didn't tell me to leave. Just sighed, the kind that comes from fighting something invisible. You never listen, do you? Not when it comes to you. That made her laugh, one short, incredulous sound that faded too quickly. You really don't understand what you're doing. I took a slow step forward. Then tell me. She looked down, shaking her head. Eli, you don't cross lines like this. Not when you've built your life around being careful. You keep saying that like I'm the one crossing them. Her eyes lifted to mine, sharp, wet with light from the window. Because you make it easy to forget where they are. The words hit harder than they should have. I moved closer before I realized I was doing it. She didn't back away. Why does it scare you so much? I asked. Her jaw tightened. Because I remember what it's like to believe something impossible could last. She tried to move past me, but I caught her wrist, gently, not enough to stop her, just enough that she froze. Please, I said. Don't walk away again. The word again hung there between us, something neither of us had said but both felt. Her breathing changed, shallow, unsteady. She looked at our hands, then at me. You don't know what I've already lost, she whispered. Then tell me. She didn't. Instead, she stepped closer until the distance between us was nothing but breath. I could feel the warmth of her, the faint scent of rain still clinging to her clothes. Her hand lifted like she meant to push me away, but it didn't. Her fingers grazed my cheek instead, a light, trembling touch that felt like an apology. Eli, her voice cracked on my name. I reached up, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. It stuck to my fingers, soft, electric. She closed her eyes for half a second, like she was letting herself forget who she was supposed to be. "I can't keep pretending this is nothing," I said. When she opened her eyes again, they were glassy, fierce. "It has to be nothing," she said, but the words came out like a confession, not a rule. Her breath brushed my mouth when she said it. Neither of us moved. The air felt heavy, almost humming. Outside, thunder rolled. The light flickered. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "Maybe," I said. "But not tonight." She didn't stop me when I stepped closer. My hand found her waist, hesitant, waiting for her to pull away. She didn't. She leaned into it, barely, like gravity had finally won. "Eli," she said again, softer this time. "This isn't fair." "I'm not asking for fair." Her eyes fell to my lips, then darted away. For a long, suspended second, everything slowed, the rain, the ticking clock, the space between us narrowing to nothing. Then, suddenly, a knock on the door. Loud. Urgent. She jerked back, breath catching in her throat. I stepped away just as the door opened a crack. A student's voice echoed in, "Professor Raines? The dean's asking for you." She cleared her throat. "I'll be right there." Her voice was steady again, almost convincing. The door shut. The silence that followed was deafening. She looked at me, chest rising and falling too fast. "You need to go," she said. But I didn't move. I just watched her, standing there between me and the storm, knowing that next time, if there was a next time, we wouldn't stop. It started as a rumor. By the end of the week, whispers were already moving through the department, not loud enough to be official, but sharp enough to sting. Someone had seen us. Or thought they had. I caught fragments in the hallway, my name, hers, the word office spoken like it meant something indecent. When I walked into her class that morning, she was already there, pretending nothing was wrong. Her expression didn't falter, but her hand trembled slightly as she wrote on the board. I noticed. She avoided looking at me the entire hour. When the bell rang, she dismissed everyone too quickly. "Eli," she said before I could leave. Her voice was calm, but her knuckles were white around the marker she still held. "Stay a moment." The door shut behind the last student. We stood in the echo of empty desks. "They're talking," she said flatly. "I know. You need to act like nothing's happened." I almost laughed. "Nothing has happened." Her eyes met mine. "Don't do that. Don't play innocent now." There was something brittle in her tone, not anger exactly, but fear. "Did you tell anyone?" she asked. "No. Of course not." She exhaled slowly, pressing a hand to her temple. Then someone saw. Her gaze drifted to the window, unfocused. "If the dean hears, they'll investigate." "I can't," she stopped herself. "Can't what?" She shook her head. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." That broke something. Her laugh was short, bitter. "You think this is about you? I have tenure review next month, Eli. One whisper of impropriety and everything I've built disappears." Her voice cracked at the end. "I didn't ask for this," she said quietly. "Any of it." I took a step closer. "Neither did I." She turned to face me then, all the calm gone from her expression. "Then why do you keep coming back?" "Because you keep leaving the door open." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut through the hum of the lights. She looked like she wanted to say something, but instead she brushed past me, reaching for her bag. Her shoulder grazed mine, a soft, fleeting touch that left my skin burning. "Don't," she said, not turning around. "I'm not doing anything. That's the problem." Her voice faltered. She set the bag down again, both hands gripping the strap like it was the only thing holding her steady. "Last year," she said suddenly, "when my marriage ended, I promised myself I wouldn't be that woman again. The one who needed someone to see her." I hesitated. "And now?" She closed her eyes. "Now I don't know what I'm doing." For a moment, neither of us moved. The sound of rain returned, softer this time, tapping against the glass. Then she looked at me, really looked. Her eyes were wet but fierce. "Tell me this is just curiosity. Tell me it's nothing." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Her lips parted like she was about to say something else, but then her phone buzzed again, the same name lighting up the screen, Mark, ex-husband. She stared at it for too long, then turned it face down. "He's been calling all week," she said, her voice hollow. "He wants to talk things through. Says he made a mistake." I didn't hide the bitterness in my voice. "You going to see him?" Her silence was its own confession. Something in my chest twisted. "So that's it?" You just go back. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I took another step forward. He gets to want you back, but I don't even get to, Eli, she snapped, cutting me off. Stop. But I didn't. You think this is just some mistake. It's not. You can't look at me the way you do and pretend it doesn't mean anything. Her breath hitched. She turned away, but I reached out, my hand brushing her arm, her sleeve damp and cool from the rain. Don't, she said again, weaker this time. I'm sorry, I whispered. You should be. Her words were firm, but her body didn't move away. I could feel the tremor under her skin, the tiny, involuntary shiver of someone torn in two. I don't want to ruin your life, I said. You already could, she murmured. The room went still again. I could hear her breathing, uneven, fast. Then, without looking at me, she said, meet me tonight. Off campus. It didn't sound like a question. I swallowed hard. Where? She hesitated, eyes still on the rain outside. There's a cafe near the train station. Back corner. After 9. When she finally turned, the look in her eyes wasn't fear anymore, it was surrender. And for the first time, I didn't know if that made me lucky or damned. The cafe was nearly empty. Rain streaked the windows, catching the yellow glow of the streetlights outside. The air smelled of wet pavement and espresso, sharp, familiar, almost comforting. She was already there, sitting in the back corner just like she said. Her coat was still damp, her hair pulled back but coming loose at the edges. She looked like someone who hadn't slept. When she saw me, she gave the smallest nod, like words would have been too heavy. I sat across from her. Between us sat 2 untouched cups of coffee, both cooling fast. I shouldn't have asked you here, she said quietly. Then why did you? She didn't answer right away. Her fingers traced the rim of her cup, slow circles. Because I needed to see if this was real, or if I've just been losing my mind. I leaned forward. And? She looked at me, a long, tired look that said more than words ever could. That's what I'm afraid of. For a while, the only sound was the rain tapping against the window. She watched it like it might decide for her. When I was married, she said softly, I spent years convincing myself I didn't need anyone to look at me like that. That being admired was dangerous. That it made me reckless. She looked up. And then you came along. Her voice trembled, barely. I wanted to reach across the table, but I didn't. Not yet. You think this is about admiration? No, she said. It's about the fact that I can't stop thinking about you, even when I'm supposed to be grading papers or sleeping or, she broke off, pressing her hand against her mouth. God, listen to me. Then stop fighting it, I said, almost a whisper. She laughed once, without humor. You think it's that easy? You walk into my life at 23, and suddenly I'm the one losing control? I didn't plan this. I know, she said. That's why it's worse. The silence after that was dense, humming. She reached for her coffee again, but her hand shook. I reached out instinctively, steadying it. Our fingers touched. She froze. I didn't let go. The world outside blurred, lights, rain, movement, all of it distant. All that was left was the warmth of her skin against mine, the quiet thud of my pulse, the way her breathing changed. Eli, she said, barely audible. If we do this, it doesn't end well. Then don't think about the ending. She stared at me, eyes dark and uncertain. Then, slowly, she stood. Come here. I did. We stood by the window, the rain a moving reflection around us. She reached up, touched my face like she was memorizing something she had no right to keep. Her thumb brushed my jaw, the corner of my mouth. You make me forget who I'm supposed to be, she said. Maybe that's the point. Her breath hitched. Our foreheads nearly touched. I could feel her heartbeat, fast, uneven, through the space between us. This is a mistake, she whispered. I know. She smiled faintly. You're supposed to argue. I don't want to win. That made her close her eyes. For a moment, the world went quiet, no rain, no noise, just the sound of 2 people trying to breathe through something too big to name. Then she pulled back, just an inch, enough to look at me fully. You need to go, she said, but her voice broke halfway through the sentence. I nodded. If I do, this ends. I know, she said again, and her hand slipped from my face, slow, reluctant. When I turned to leave, she said my name, soft, almost reverent. I looked back. Her eyes weren't afraid anymore. They were steady. Now you know, she said. And I did, that it wasn't about winning her or losing her. It was about being seen completely, just once, and realizing it was enough. 2 weeks passed before I saw her again. No messages. No glances in the hallway. Just silence, the kind that grows heavy enough to make you question what was real. Then one afternoon, I found a note slipped beneath my dorm door. Office. After hours. Same handwriting. No name. None needed. When I walked in, the sun was already sinking. Golden light pooled across her desk, turning everything soft, the books, the papers, her face when she looked up. She smiled faintly. You came. I didn't know if you wanted me to. I wasn't sure either, she said, closing the folder in front of her. But the rumors died down. The review went through. And I'm tired of pretending we didn't almost ruin ourselves for nothing. She stood, stepping closer. Her hair was loose again, and for a moment, the scent of her, warm, familiar, steady, brought everything back. The rain, the cafe, the almost. I've spent my life worrying about what's appropriate, she said. What looks right. What keeps me safe. And then you showed up with your impossible timing and your questions I can't ignore. I tried to speak, but she kept going. I thought I was past this. Wanting something that might break me. But maybe I just needed to feel it again, something that wasn't about control. She stopped then, her voice softening. You make me feel awake. The last word hung there, unguarded. I stepped closer, then stopped trying to fix it. She gave a small, tired laugh. You sound so sure. I'm not, I said. But I know what it's like to walk away and regret it for years. Her eyes lifted, curious, cautious. My mother did that, I said quietly. She left someone she loved because people talked. Said she never forgave herself. I think I understood her better this semester than I ever did growing up. Her face softened. So this is generational? Maybe just human. We both smiled, small and sad. She reached up then, slow, uncertain, and brushed her hand against my cheek. You should be out there, she said, voice trembling. Meeting people your age. Not waiting for someone like me to decide it's okay. I'm not waiting, I said. I'm choosing. Something in her eyes broke open at that, the fear, the doubt, the logic she'd been clinging to. She stepped closer. Our hands found each other, tentative at first, then sure. The air felt lighter. Tell me this doesn't scare you, she whispered. It does, I said. That's how I know it matters. Her lips curved, almost a smile. Then she leaned her forehead against mine, eyes closing. No words, no pretense, just breath and warmth and that quiet pulse that had been there since the first night. Her fingers tightened around mine. We're not supposed to make sense, she murmured. Good, I said. Let's not. She laughed, soft and unguarded. And in that small sound, all the tension, the secrecy, the guilt, the distance, finally loosened. When she kissed my forehead, it wasn't an ending. It was a beginning that didn't need an audience. The sun slipped lower, and the office filled with the dim amber of evening. Neither of us moved to turn on the light. We just sat there, her hand still in mine, the world quiet outside. For once, neither of us had to say what came next. Point 10.